human resources, human capital, people and culture. This single vocation has many names. HR professionals are responsible for what is arguably the most critical success factor within any organization. It's talent. HR Studio Podcast brings you interviews from HR and industry thought leaders so you can listen, learn and leverage. Welcome to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. HR Studio is brought to you by A.J. O'Connor Associates. To learn more about our sponsor, please visit ajoconnor.com and be sure to check out the AJO blog for additional HR learning tools and resources.
Welcome, everyone, to HR Studio Podcast. My name is Linda Halavic, and I'll be your host for today's conversation. Our topic today is one that is very near and dear to all of our hearts, and it's the topic of technology. In fact, right now, I bet all of our listeners, myself included, have within an arm's length either a smartphone or a personal digital device of some sort that we actually can't even imagine parting with any longer. The topic of technology and its impact on every aspect of our lives is one that is on the top of every journal article or newscast almost that you hear or read about today. And the question becomes, how disruptive is it being to our lives? Because we are told that our jobs may go away. We're told that the world as we know it today may change dramatically, and people are understandably worried. Well, up until now, no one has really successfully gotten their arms around this entire societal dynamic, if you will. But our guest today, Dr. Tracey Wilen, is someone who has. Dr. Wilen is a researcher and speaker on the impact of technology on society, on work, and on careers, to just name a few. She's a former visiting scholar at Stanford University and has held leadership positions at organizations such as Apple, Hewlett-Packard, and Cisco Systems. Dr. Wilen has recently written a book, which will be released next month, called Digital Disruption: The Future of Work, Skills, Leadership, Education, and Careers in a Digital World. Welcome, Dr. Wilen, to HR Studio.
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year to you.
Yes, you as well. It's great to have you back. This is the second time, actually, we've had the privilege to talk with you because you're in such a dynamic and interesting space. So we really appreciate your time again today. To get us started, Dr. Wilen, can you share with us what is digital disruption?
What is this digital disruption? Yes. Digital disruption is actually a lot referred to it as the fourth industrial revolution, where we're going through a new wave of technologies. It might be artificial intelligence or cloud or robotics. And basically, it's a change. And to me, it's a change which means innovation, a change from the status quo. A lot of people might be nervous about the change, but I view it as very positive. And it will really lead us to a lot of exciting new revolutions, new opportunities, new products and services in the new world.
Mm-hmm. It's great to hear you say that you find it's positive and you project it will be. I suspect some of people's worry has to do with, what generation they're associated with today. There is a lot of worry, but can you share with us your predictions for the kind of most or biggest disruptors that are ahead and why you see that?
Oh, sure. So the first one I think you already addressed. Society ourselves, we are disruptive. Yeah. If you're texting every day, using social media, taking a lot of selfies, ordering online, right. Using ride sharing, you're already disrupted. In fact, many people would say that you're addicted to technology, highly dependent on technology. But here's what's important to know about it. As it disrupts your lives, you're going to be looking for more and more services. You're going to want that inventory faster. You're going to make sure that even a paint chip is on an app, right? You're going to be looking for ways that you can use technology more. And that will drive increased changes in work, in industries, and even in our own careers.
Wow. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I see people taking pictures of their meal and sending them to people, all kinds of things that are societal. What other areas, because I know you've got some very firm predictions, for lack of a better term. Societal is just one. If you can you share maybe a couple of others? I'm sure our audience is equally as intrigued by this topic as I am.
Sure. So I think the second big area is work. And I see three big changes in work. Number one is your coworker is going to change. It's either going to be an artificial intelligence, it's going to be a robot, it's going to be a contractor, it might be a virtual expert somewhere else in the world working part-time, and you'll be in a 24/7 world with a virtual team. So I think people have to realize that right in their own workplace, the coworker relationships will change. Number two is it's very, very competitive because businesses can be started off of a smart device. As you know, with eBay or Etsy, anyone can open a storefront in less than an hour. And so you have to look now to the competition, not as the building next door, but really it could be coming from anywhere in the world. But the third one that I think is the most important for people to think about is you're living longer. Researchers will tell you today that an adult will live to about 115. And that's mind-boggling and daunting for people. So basically what it means to you is you might have to work until you're 80 years old to be able to afford retirement. And that means you might be outliving the company that you're working for. And that means that you're going to have to plan your career more effectively. So you'll have to stay technical enough, educated enough, and healthy enough to do that. Now, if you're on the leadership side, as we talk to HR executives, here's how it's playing out in the workforce. They used to have maybe 3 generations in the workforce, maybe 4 generations in the workforce, but today they have 5 generations in the workforce.
Wow.
So McDonald's tells me that the youngest employee is about 14 and a half, and Walmart will tell you that the oldest employee is about 103. So you as an HR leader or just leader of a firm, you have to figure out how to really blend together teams that have 5 generations when every generation has a different idea about work. Every generation has a different idea about technology. Every generation has a different idea about leadership. So I think that's a big one on multiple levels is how work is disrupting.
Wow. I'll say that's just fascinating. I wish we had 2 hours to speak today, Tracey, because what you just highlighted is just it is a bit mind-blowing. But the last one you spoke about is all workplace related. And as you know, our listeners are HR professionals. Will we find in your new book or from your own research or experience techniques or advice or guidance perhaps for HR professionals in getting ready to face this and prepare themselves and then their leaders for what's ahead?
Absolutely. In fact, we dedicate one chapter just to HR leadership. We have a couple of chapters on leadership, but really about HR. What are some of the things that other people are doing to manage in a very disruptive world? What are some of the best practices that people are sharing? And how does how does technology really impact HR? If you think about it, let me just take the area of recruiting, for example. Many recruiters, right, are in HR. They see thousands and thousands of resumes and they use applicant tracking systems. But really where you want to get to is artificial intelligence. You want to be able to teach the software to actually really hone in beyond skill words and really get to the essence of an individual's experience, right, based on a lot of the way that the script is written. And then at the end of the day, as an HR executive, when someone comes to you and says, I need the perfect candidate, you can easily pull up 3 without having to go through thousands. So I think there's an incredible opportunity in recruiting. But now also let's look about diversity. In 2018, a lot of HR executives say leadership today wants to invest in diversity. How can technology help us with diversity? Well, people analytics, right? Let's go back to the resume thing, right? If you can actually instruct and teach software to be really adept at finding competent people who have the right experience, who have the right skills and the right background, you can wade through a lot of the unconscious bias because what you will pull out are the resumes or the people who are best suited for the jobs. So I think that technology has a lot to offer HR in so many levels, and I think HR should really embrace it. You know, in addition to being leaders, and let me just make a comment on HR and leadership.
Please, Tracey.
The landscape has absolutely changed. You know, HR has to be a player. It has to be a player at the table. Many times we use HR, as our gatekeeper or our legal aspect of the firm.
Yeah.
But really, you have to really take a leadership role. And as you see in the press, there's so many issues bubbling up today that we need strong HR leaders. And I think that's a big shift because they weren't really given that opportunity in the past. And today you really are on the firing line. So I think that's really important for HR leaders.
Yeah, agree. And I have to ask this question because when we spoke first, we talked about career management and the importance of taking a career selfie, and frankly, the importance of leaning in and initiating your career. Can you talk about how that competency is even more important, perhaps 2 years now forward, than it was back then, based on what we're talking about today?
Oh, absolutely. So if you think about it from the HR perspective, in the past, we used to set up all the training programs, give our employees a guideline, tell them where the path was, here are the building blocks to be a leader. A couple of things have changed. Number one, succession planning has to start at day one. Young people coming into the workforce want to have leadership opportunities at a younger age. We don't have to wait anymore until they're 40 to start grooming them. We need to give them the opportunity. It's up to them. Number two is we have to create the environment so that the employees can develop themselves into leadership. So that means I need to set a scenario where they can make lateral moves. They can join cross-functional teams that maybe help them build some skills. I have to give them opportunities to take classes. I don't have to offer them necessarily, but I certainly need to support them in their choices. And number four is, really give them an opportunity for high visibility projects so that they can really rise to the top if they have the capability and interest. So I think just the landscape as an HR director has changed because now we have to not tell our employees what their career is, but create the environment for them to grow.
Yeah, it's great. So the level of engagement actually is even greater and should be in order to help people take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and fashion their pathway, to your point, rather than have someone else try to even do it on their own.
Well, absolutely. And I think all of this really needs to start at onboarding. You really have to let your employees know that they have to be the CEO of their own jobs. They have to start to maneuver their jobs, think through, and start to develop a plan. A plan of what do I want to be in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and now all the way up to 80s or 90s. And how am I going to grow in this firm? And what are some of the things that I can give you as a manager or you as an HR person to help me get to where I want to be?
No, it's terrific. You have so much passion about this, and clearly, and because we've talked, you're not afraid of this digital disruption. Can you share with the audience why? Why is it that you're embracing this versus being kind of fearful of it? Because I think, encouraging people to have that same mindset is something that we can do as HR professionals with our clients. But how is it you're doing it, Tracey? What?
Well, it's very logical, right? It's real, it's happening, and it's here. So that gives us choices. Do we embrace the choices that we have ahead of us, or do we hide under a rock? And so most of us would prefer or don't have a rock to hide under and realize that we actually have to support our families. We have to really pay rent, right? We have to, get from point A to point B. And so we have to really get on board. And the sooner that you get on board, the faster, right, you can really manage yourself. And it's very exciting when you learn technology. It's really a language. Once you learn the language, you continue to be able to help you learn other technologies, and it gets easier and easier.
No, I couldn't agree more. Resilience has always been something that seems to be part of every very successful person's, skill set. And in another way, what you're talking about is to accept what's happening, embrace it, and demonstrate resilience. Get through it and enjoy it and optimize it versus be afraid of it. So I think that's great. It's great advice to give the group, Tracey.
Absolutely. When I talk to leaders around the world, they tell me that running a firm today is like being a first responder. We call the term VUCA, world volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And they said the world is so different that every day I go to work and I feel like I'm under fire. And I need to really develop employees who have that same sense of urgency. And a lot of the times we're under fire because we're competing with firms who have embraced technology and they figured out how to get around us much faster than we can.
Agreed.
So we have to figure out how do we really engage our employees to be much more entrepreneurial? How do we develop them to be the CEO of their job? And how do we help them help us understand how to use technology so that we can be very competitive.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to tee it up. So your book, Digital Disruption, sounds like it would be terrific for all of our listeners. Are there any other specific audiences that you believe would benefit from your particular, the new book that's coming out very soon, next month, I think?
Sure. Actually, the book is on order now at Amazon and Barnes & Noble,
Perfect.
and so people will get it in January, February 2018. So it's clearly available.
Great.
So the audience was initially for leaders because they came to me the most, and that's where I do most of my speaking at corporations and conferences.
Yes.
But hand in hand, the HR directors said we need it too because we are their partners.
Yep.
And so this is the second largest population really to address. The third is educators. Now, I am an educator myself in higher education, and educators have come to me and said, we need to produce employees of the future. Our students need to be the pipeline. So we need some guidance here on what does the workplace look like. And then, of course, fourth is the employees and the students saying, how do I stay relevant? What do I study? What do I do? How do I manage my career or take a career selfie, as we discussed?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, there's something for everyone. But I set it up into individual chapters so that, let's say you're an HR executive, you can pull out the leadership chapters, you can pull out the HR chapter, you can pull out the women's chapter if you so choose to understand more about, or the diversity chapter. And you can read it in its single, or you can read it, end to end. A lot of educators tell me that they'd like to assign chapters now. So I try to make it so that it's easy to read, no matter which way that, you prefer.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. That's terrific. Thank you so much for that overview. And frankly, for being so successful in getting your arms around this very kind of gray and somewhat concerning area for people. There's a lot of angst and a lot of worry out there about what technology is doing to the world as we know it. So thank you, Tracey, for writing this book. Congratulations. I think it's number 12, am I right, of the books you've published. So hats off. It's terrific work, and I encourage everyone in our listening audience to find Tracey at her website. Tracey, you want to share what your website is, and the folks can learn even more?
Sure, thank you. So my website is TraceyWilen.com, which is TraceyWilen.com. I'm on Facebook as Dr. Tracey Wilen. I'm on Twitter as Tracey Wilen, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So we try to be everywhere that you need me to be.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been terrific again to speak with you. I look forward to reading the book myself, and hopefully we'll talk again in the future, Tracey. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to HR Studio Podcast, building the next generation of HR leaders. To download the show notes and discover additional information from this week's episode, please visit hrstudiopodcast.com. To join the conversation, we invite you to visit our LinkedIn group, where you will connect with a growing community of current and future HR leaders.